Hello, everyone. Welcome to This Is Your Time to Shine. This is Dr. Sri Mehlet here again with another wonderful guest, Daniela Wolfe, who is going to tell us about how you go from exhaustion to endurance, exhaustion to
Empowered.
empowerment. See, I got that wrong. But like you all know, I'm just going to let her tell you who she is, what she does, where she does it, and then we will begin the conversation about This Is Your Time to Shine. Hey, Daniela, thank you so much for being here and also accommodating my not being able to do this when we had previously scheduled it. So thank you so much. Come on in and tell the audience what it is that you do, who you are, how you came up with exhaustion to empowerment. I love that.
No, thank you so much for having me. Like she said, my name is Daniela Wolfe. I am a full-time social worker, so I've been doing that for almost 30 years. So I'm clinically trained in all things mindfulness, stress management, coping skills, as well as I'm a burnout prevention specialist. And my business for that is Best D Life, helping you find the bliss in your busy. And as part of that, I help busy professionals learn the skills so that they can take charge of their work, life, and well-being and prevent burnout. Like I said, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm also a mom of two. Even though they're older now, when they were younger, about 4 and 6 months old, I went through a divorce and I ended up in my own burnout because I was a single working mom trying to do it all, be it all, prove I was capable of handling everything. And in that process, I was irritable. I was snapping at my kids more than I wanted to, and just not showing up like the mom and woman that I wanted them to remember as they grew up. I had kind of, like I said, a meltdown moment and started to practice what I help everybody else with. I think so many times as helpers and caregivers, we're great at helping everybody else, but forget to turn that on ourselves. And so I started super small with a simple like gratitude practice, just listing 3 to 5 things every day I was grateful for. At the time, our grocery store had free childcare, which was great. So, I would put them in there, and definitely it took time working on my mindset, letting go of some of the guilt. If I ran into somebody and they were asking where the kids were, I joined a gym that had free childcare. And so by slowly taking these small micro moments, I started to not only see that I was showing up better, but so were my kids, and on this journey, they're now in their 20s. So it's been quite a road. I found along the way, people were coming to me, asking what I was doing, asking, how was I finding this time or making these moments, as well as sharing time they took for themselves because it's something I said or did. And I realized I think we're all looking for that validation and permission that it's okay to take time for yourself. And so that kind of is how I started the business and realized, we all need to be living every single day in a way that feels good. We're not waiting for later or when things slow down or when the kids grow up. We need to be living our lives now in a way that feels good for us as well as everybody around us benefits.
Yeah, beautiful. The show is called This Is Your Time to Shine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the premise is I started thinking about how a lot of us women, particularly at the stages that we are in, where we are kind of empty nesters. I mean, I'm more than an empty nester,
Mm-hmm.
but we begin to think about, is this all there is this
Yeah.
it is this, we remember how all of the dreams that you had when you were growing up. And I think what's really important about your story is that not only are you showing other women what to do, you're also setting an example for your children.
Absolutely. Now that they're older and we've talked about it, and to see the impact it had on how they're managing their own stress, because kids do what we do and not what we say.
Yes, yeah.
So it definitely, has had an impact, as well as I think the one thing we don't always realize is we think burnout comes from things we don't enjoy, but it actually, our passions make us more prone and at risk for burnout. They've done studies and everything. And so whether that's your kids, your job, a relationship, the things that you go all in on and toss your boundaries out the window for are the
Yeah.
things that can set you up for burnout, because you lose yourself in those passions. And so like you said, even with kids, you know, we wait till they're gone to be like, well, what do I like to do? What do I want for dinner? And
Yeah.
we don't realize, you know, we need to be doing that the whole way through.
Yeah, I remember. So, some of the listeners have heard this story before, but so I grew up with a lot of dreams. Like from the time I was very little, I had this idea of, building organizations that help people around the world, and being published, and all of, very big dreams. And I was actually I did a year and 2 semesters of a master's in social work just before I got married. But I lost my mom in a plane crash when I
Oh,
was 19.
wow, I'm so
And
sorry.
that completely reset my life, right? Everything that I had planned just seemed to go by the wayside, was completely lost for some time. She was my closest friend. And what I I had an arranged marriage. I got married in a couple of years, and there's a lot that we can talk about in terms of that, but the not in terms of the since I said arranged marriage, I should just finish this off. It was arranged. It was, I get to see the person, I get to decide whether I want to marry him or not. Our horoscopes are matched, and our horoscopes are much more than sun signs.
Mhm.
So it was all, it's all good. There was no coercion. But I remember I had just finished my bachelor's. I have a bachelor's degree at that time. And one of the things that I did immediately was I signed up for multiple um, online courses. I was very aware that I didn't want to lose my identity, but I also feel that there was a time when we were in the Middle East. I had a son like within 10 months of the marriage. And I remember thinking, I am so in, and I believe this was my mom talking to me. But I was just so completely engrossed in, raising my son and taking, my husband's a physician. And so he was extremely busy as a young physician. And it was like, there's no time to think about yourself, right? And I remember thinking, what will I do when these people go away? My son is going to grow up and go. And then I have a daughter as well, who is, they're all going to have their own lives.
Yeah.
And if I don't take care to have a life of my own and start doing that now, they are going to feel the resentment. I'm going to be resentful towards them all my life.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because there's going to be this sense that I sacrificed something and now I don't have anything, which in a sense is where this is your time to shine starts, right? It's like, where did my life go? Why don't I have a life of my own? And that is why it's so important for you to have said that you created these micro moments for yourself, and that you recognize that there was some guilt when you were taking that time off, but you did not give in to the guilt. So I want you to talk a little bit more about, and I think what I also wanted to emphasize was, sorry, I'm talking a lot, but what I wanted to emphasize was that you said something about when we go all in,
Mhm.
we throw out our boundaries.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that we really need to learn, especially as women, especially as people who nurture everyone else, to stop feeling the guilt about boundaries. So tell me how you did it, and how you help your clients understand what boundaries are.
Yeah. So, as part of the Exhausted to Empowered formula, the three main areas that I help with are your mindset, your time planning, and your self-care then, because I believe when you think differently, you feel differently. And when you feel differently, you act differently. So that mindset part, I think gets overlooked a lot of times. You know, we put these activities on our list that we think are going to help us feel better without realizing if we don't change the thoughts, like you said, that guilt, that resentment, those expectations that we think other people have for us, our running to-do list, all those kind of things, if we don't stop that chatter in our head, then we're not going to feel any differently. And just adding those things to our list is not going to work for us. And so definitely working on that mindset, the conversation, the things I was telling myself is a huge piece. We talk to ourselves more than we talk to anybody else in the whole entire world. And yet we're never as kind with ourselves as we are to somebody else. You know, we would be supportive of a friend, we would be encouraging, and yet to ourselves, we can be very negative and nasty and doubtful and all those types of things. So one is catching those statements and then changing the conversation. It's about creating new neural pathways in your brain. You know, it's not just reading positive affirmations and thinking you're going to feel better. When you do positive affirmations, quotes, changing that conversation, you're creating a new pathway, a new way of thinking in your mindset that then allows the benefits of those activities to really take hold and really be reinforced and encouraged. So that mindset piece is that first part. Then when we look at your time, we look at how are you planning your day and what are the true priorities? Because when you just make a big to-do list and everything has the same level of importance and urgency, now all of a sudden nothing is really important at all. So I use a tool called the Eisenhower Matrix to help people kind of come up with those 1, 2, maybe 3 top priorities each day. And then when we look at your time, we build buffer space in between those activities, so they're not stacked back to back to back, because the goal is to find that work-life balance, work-life harmony, work-life flow. And when I talk about it, balance isn't about everything being equal. Balance comes from our ability to adapt, pivot, have resilience, and then those boundaries that I talked about, you know, and our resilience, our mental fitness will come from some of those self-care activities, but that ability to adapt and pivot, that's where those buffer moments are in our time, because life happens sometimes without our permission, without us knowing what's coming next. And so say like I'm walking out the door and I spill my coffee on myself. If I was running late, of course I'm going to be stressed, panicked, and a little more frustrated than if I had time to at least go back upstairs, change my shirt. And those buffer zones allow then for life to happen, allow for you to adapt and pivot. But then also they allow for those micro moments. If nothing goes wrong, you get those micro moments of self-care throughout your day. Because when I talk about self-care, it's not fluffy or a nice to have or a luxury. It's not like a spa day or a massage or a getaway. Those things are great, but they're not sustainable on a day-to-day basis. And self-care needs to be done every single day. You wouldn't eat on Sunday and think you're not going to be starving by Tuesday. You can't practice self-care on Saturday and think you're good for the week. And so these micro moments encompass everything from how you eat, how you sleep, how you move, how you dress, how you decorate and organize your home, how you think about money, how you connect with others, as well as that traditional personal development like meditation, mindfulness, journaling, those types of things. And when you start to reframe what self-care can look like, the options are limitless as to how you can start to integrate it. I couldn't find the word, integrate it throughout your day in so many different ways, because every day looks different. And so sometimes you need to be able, again, to adapt and pivot and have that flexibility around your space, your time. And then those boundaries are going to help not only protect your time, but they're also going to give you the freedom to show up 100% in everything that you're focused on. So, you know, you're not feeling like I need to check my work emails because you've set boundaries around your work hours. You don't feel like you're compromising or letting anybody down when you put those boundaries in place. They're one of my favorite B words because I think they get a bad rap, but they're truly, truly freeing.
Yeah. And they're also a way to, when you're talking about self-care, they're also a way to show yourself that you're important.
Yeah, boundaries aren't just no's. The boundaries are the things you say yes to every
Yes.
single day. Like for me, I have a set morning and nighttime routine. And even though it might look different on any given day, some days I only have 10 minutes in the morning, some days I might have 40 minutes. But the fact that I say yes to that routine every single day. So there's 5-minute yoga practices, 5-minute meditations if I'm running tight on time, My nighttime routine is the same thing. I do my skincare and I read from an actual book, and sometimes it's only 3 sentences. Sometimes it's 3 paragraphs, 3 pages. But again, it's the consistency that allows you to be then in a constant kind of recharged place, so that when life happens, I can intentionally respond rather than react impulsively, emotionally, because those are a lot of the things we regret as well. Self-care isn't just about being calm and zen. It's about doing things that recharge you, re-energize you, build your confidence, because that energy, how you show up, affects everybody else around you. If you're in a snarky mood, people are going to feel that versus if you're in a joyful place.
Absolutely. So what does a typical, if somebody wanted to work with you, right? Describe some of your programs and what you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's several different ways to work with me and to kind of start to ink your own journey in this area, because I think everyone's at a different comfort level, everyone's at a different starting point. So there's everything from, my free resources, listening to me on podcasts. I have a podcast as well. I have a micro course on just the time planning piece alone. I have a book, Balance Breakthrough, a practical guide for busy professionals to take charge of your work life and well-being, that outlines the entire exhausted to empowered formula. And it's like a step-by-step do-it-yourself playbook. I do one-on-one coaching, as well as I come in and do corporate trainings. And so let's talk as a corporate group, as a leadership team, your whole work environment, to really change that culture, so that there's, like I said, different ways, whether you're on your own personal journey or looking to change the people around you and the team that you're working with.
Yeah, awesome. And where do you typically get your clients from?
It's a mix of, like I said, people find me online. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, as well as my website, bestglife.com, but also just referrals. People, once we start talking, they see they want to find out how to make this work for them. It's like, you can definitely do it yourself, go through the tools, find those strategies. It's kind of like working with a trainer at the gym. You can figure out your workout routine, but if you want to get there far and fast, having someone who can kind of create a custom program for you is going to help you get there faster.
Awesome. I wanted to go a little bit more into, because I'm a mindset, I'm both a mindset and a business coach. So I just wanted to know what when you deal with mindset, how do you do that? What do you
Yeah.
do for mindset? Yeah.
Yeah. It takes, like I said, it takes time. Definitely the mindset piece, I think, it's underestimated, but it's the most powerful.
Yeah.
And it could take a little bit longer. All of these areas take practice. That these are not a quick one and done, but by changing, in micro moments, changing your habits when it comes to how you're thinking, we're not overhauling everything, but we're looking at maybe like even some of the things that are ingrained in us from when we were kids. Maybe when it comes to how we're thinking about work, that I have to be available 24/7 to show I'm committed. If that's how you were raised, we're going to take some time to kind of break that down and help retrain what you actually believe and how you want to kind of think about work in those types of terms. When you want to think about taking time for yourself and letting go of that guilt, again, we're going to kind of look at what the phrases are that are coming up, come up with some alternatives, and start practicing them. So it's a process that then we build on, because once we start breaking down the mindset part of how you were thinking, then we can add these new kind of ways of blocking our time, these new activities, and we're going to think about them differently when we start with that mindset piece.
So I wanted to bring something in, one of the I was in a 3-day event, like starting Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and it was a lot of real it was supposed to be a marketing put up by a marketing guru, although he's younger than my kids actually. So um but he's brilliant, and he's his name is Alexander Ford, but he's willing to go really deep into deep spaces. And one of his phrases is that having is evidence of wanting, right? So if you say you want something, more time, or more money or whatever, but you don't have it, it means there is something that for some reason you don't actually want it,
Mm-hmm.
because there is something in your mindset, in our mindset, that is stopping it. So I have a program where I take women entrepreneurs, women of color entrepreneurs, and immigrant women of color, and help them to build multiple six-figure businesses. But if you don't want to be to have a multiple six-figure business, right, if there is some part of your psyche, so I also do occasionally do these workshops, free workshops, called activate your success triggers. And the whole thing behind that is, why are you afraid of success? What
Mm-hmm.
might be the reasons that you're afraid of success? And I had one of my clients, um, we were talking about, does she actually want to make multiple six figures? And I use EFT and meditation and stuff, and when people go, so the thing that came up for her was, rich people are mean, nasty, cutthroat, and untrustworthy,
Mm.
right? And she got this because when she was helping her mom clean homes when she was a teenager, that is how she experienced rich people.
Right.
So she doesn't want to become a rich person because she doesn't want other people to think that she is going to be mean, nasty,
Mm-hmm.
cutthroat, and untrustworthy. So there is that level of, we have to clear that out completely before she'll do the work that she needs to do.
Yep, those
So
mean girls in your head can be nasty.
yeah. Yeah. So, and like you said, the conversations that we have in our mind are so much worse than the conversations other people have with us, right? Even the worst thing that we are afraid of is not quite as bad as the way we talk to ourselves,
Right. Right.
right? So do you how do you guide people out of things like that?
Yeah, like I said, it's a personal journey for
Yeah.
sure. But like if we were working together one-on-one, we have weekly coaching sessions. You have access to me
Yeah.
throughout the week, and so we're really working in real time on changing the script, changing the narrative, and intentionally practicing and kind of like you memorize for a test, you're memorizing for your life
Yeah.
of how you're going to start thinking the phrases you're going to say. This might be a silly example, but like when my kids were younger, once I tried making homemade gnocchi. Oh my God, the first time was a disaster. It dissolved into like this ooey gooey
Gosh.
potato mush in the pot. It was disgusting. And the second time I did try it again. So I tried again the second time. It was a little bit better. It was a little more edible. But by the third time I had it, and we actually started when they were so little, a new rule, like you get 3 tries for any new thing, whether it's a new recipe, a new skill, anything like that. And it stuck. But you look at like we never had that way of thinking. That
Yeah.
wasn't our family motto to begin with. But now it's like the first time I try anything, someone else will pipe in, don't worry, you still get 2 more tries, like and so with that practice,
Yeah.
that's how, and you don't have to do all these things in isolation. I think that's the other thing. We think self-care has to be done alone, quiet, isolation. Self-care can be loud. It can be laughter. You can do it with friends. You can do it with your kids. Because like I said, you want the people around you to be on the same page a little bit, to be supportive, to be that reminder, that little voice in your head when you don't remember those kind things and that type of thing. And so getting everybody around you on board helps a lot as well. But yeah, changing that mindset involves breaking it down, changing the script, and practicing the heck out of it. So it starts to then become who you are. It doesn't start to feel like a foreign thing. So, we're not changing all the thoughts at once. You start small, just one thought at a time. Maybe work on one thought for a week or two, and then start adding the next one, which is why they build on each other. When we work together, it's for a couple months because I don't expect you to magically be able to pick this stuff up and do it on your own. I've been doing this for 20 years in my own personal journey, and I'm still a work in progress some days. Grace, I think it's overlooked, but it's a huge part of this journey as well. Giving ourselves grace and
Yeah.
self-compassion and self-love to have just be human some days and just not be perfect is
Yeah.
also a part of this.
Yeah, and I love that you brought your kids into it, right?
Mhm.
Because I think that the biggest service we can, let me back up a little bit. One of the things that comes up, right, when women are thinking of stepping up into a bigger role, into, or maybe, stepping out as an entrepreneur, maybe doing something that is not part of what tradition and society says is their role.
Mhm.
Some of the conversation that goes on is who will take care of the kids, who will do the PTA meetings, who will do the baking for the PTA meetings, who will do the grocery shopping, who will do the laundry. And I wanted to say two things. One is, like you said, self-help does not have to be in isolation.
Mhm.
Self-help can you I think one of the things you learn about self-care is ask for help.
Yeah.
Right? Pull in the resources that you have in your network to ask for help. The second thing is, when you treat your children like adults, even when they're little. So if you're having a breakdown and you tell them, I'm sorry I broke down, I'm worried about X, Y, or Z, in age appropriately,
Mhm.
talking to
Yeah.
them, but treating them as if they're people who can actually understand you, I think, is one of the biggest things you give your kids. It's so I just want to congratulate you for being able to do that. And that gnocchi example is great, because they had to go sit through eating
Oh, yeah.
so much.
The
and
first night we ordered
yeah.
pizza because it was not good.
So for them to really experience that was awesome. I think we're coming towards the end of our thing, and I want to give you a chance to I talked a lot, and in case I overrode thoughts that you were having while I was talking, I just want to give you a chance to say what you would want to leave the audience with.
Like I just said, give yourself grace. Please feel free to reach out to me with any questions you have along the way. I offer free coaching calls to help you to see where you're nailing it and maybe where, is an area we can help strengthen and start you on your own personal development journey in this area. Because I know when you kind of see the life that you want, that it's out there, you want it as soon as possible. So let's help you get started today.
Awesome. And all of Daniela's content and connections will be in the show notes. So make sure you reach out to her and learn how as you begin to step into this world of picking up and choosing that it is your time to shine, learn how to go from, give me the name of your,
Exhausted to empowered.
exhausted to empowered. I kept thinking burnout, and I thought, no, that's not the right word. All right, Daniela, thank you so much. I hope that every one of you that's listening to this podcast will reach out, and she said she's got a lot of free resources too. And maybe that is something that I need to talk to her about. But let's take advantage of it, and then work your way into showing the world who you are, because this is your time to shine. Thank you so much for listening. God bless. See you the next time.
Thank you so much.